Hey, hey guys, welcome to another exciting show of East to West. Man, am I glad once again to be able to join you for the next 30 minutes or so just to chat and hang out and enjoy life and enjoy this nice, beautiful weather outside. Man, is it nice out here today. Yeah, it started a little chilly, but it turned out nice. It's supposed to be a nice weekend or week from what I hear. Fall's coming. I do like fall. I do like the changing of the colors of the leaves and not raking so much, but I've got it down to a science now. So it only takes me 6 weeks to rake instead of 2 months. So I'm whittling it down. So yeah, so hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys got to get out and at least do something and enjoy this nice weather. I know COVID has us, in a different season right now, but it doesn't mean we can't enjoy the season. So today I want to talk about what it's like to find hope in trouble, hope in this craziness. And we all know that craziness is enough. We have enough craziness in this world. We have enough uncertainty. We have enough doubt. We have enough just stuff. And I know I have stuff in my life. I know you guys have stuff in your life that you're dealing with, that you're trying to figure out, to try to walk through, to try to figure out how to come into this strange new world, if you per se, of what we're experiencing in this season during the summer and this time. It's like no season that I've ever experienced before. Yeah, I know we've had, troubles, coming up through the generations. There's been troubles that have come up and just, challenged us. But I think for me in my lifetime, this is probably the most challenging time that I've ever been through. I mean, life is just so uncertain right now. It's like, when are we ever going to get back to normal? And who knows what that new normal will look like? A lot of cancer survivors, they have a phrase that they like to use. It's called the new normal. Knowing that life after cancer will never be the same before cancer. And so, we just got to hunker down and grasp this concept of community, and grasp this sense of we can get through this together. Instead of focusing on when is it going to end, we should focus on how to get through it until it ends. And today I want to bring up a story that I love a lot, that my pastor brought up this morning, that I had kind of forgotten about, but it's just got so many parallels to today. I just feel that the devil with all this stuff is trying to break community. He's trying to break our love for one another. And God calls us to love, and God calls us to have truth in us. And God goes so far to say that you can't have one without the other. You can't say you love God and not love other people. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. You have to love God and you have to love people, because that's how God, the lineage of God is. God, people coming together, and that's his communion. That's his purpose. I mean, when he created the Garden of Eden and he created Adam and Eve, he didn't just create them just to sit back and watch them enjoy this beautiful garden that I can't even begin to comprehend what it would have looked like. Can you imagine how fresh the fruit would have been? How clear the water would have been? There would have been no pollutants. How green the trees would have been. How green the grass would have been. How cool would it have been to have a lion walk up to you and sit next to you? Or an elephant? or whatever animals they had back then, just to walk freely among them. But God didn't create that so he could sit on his throne and enjoy from a distance. He walked with them. He talked with them. He had communion with them. He enjoyed fellowship with them. He loved them. He created them. Just like he created all of us. He created all of us for communion and for love. And he wants to give us that example so that we could take his example and show that to other people. To be able to bring people into communion through his example. And, you know, this thing of community just reaches so much into the Bible. I mean, it's just so much of there. The Israelites, when they wandered, they had to wander as a nation. You know, they had to figure this thing out together. They had turmoil, they had strife, they had arguments, but when it boiled down to it, and at the day's end, they knew that they were going to have to come together as a community to overcome whatever adversity was coming their way. And so one of my favorite stories is Jericho, because it has so many layers to this onion of community that we're talking about. You know, here is Jericho, you know, this city with these mammoth walls, and some scholars and some people have said that the walls were over 50 to 60 feet tall. Can you imagine coming up to a wall of a city that's 50 to 60 feet tall and just going, how are we ever going to get in there? But God had a plan. God knew that even though the Israelites looked at this wall and thought, man, we can't go any farther, God always has a plan. Just like when I visit the Badlands, and I wonder, and I sit there and I try to picture the settlers moving west with their wagon loads full of everything that they own, kids, food, livestock, coming up to this thing and going, oh my gosh, how on earth are we ever going to get past these things? But they found a way. They found a way, and they kept moving on, and they kept settling, and they kept discovering, and they just kept having hope in their journey, you know. And so, like, you know, the Israelites going through the promised land, you know, and crossing the River Jordan, and finding adversary after adversary after adversary, and just struggling in hope, struggling in fear, just struggling. And then they come to Jericho, and they're like, how on earth are we ever gonna conquer this? But the Lord said to Joshua, I have given you Jericho, its kings, and all its strong warriors. Now, at this point, Joshua is probably going like, okay, how are we going to do this? I mean, how many times in our life when God says, you're going to do this, and I'm going to give it to you, do we still go, well, how is that possible? How is that going to happen? I don't know how that's going to happen. My wife Patricia, when she applied for jobs, this was the last job here at the university that she's in now. This is the last job that she applied for when she was applying back in 2007. She's like, there's no way I'm going to get this job. There's just no way. She came out, interviewed, went back. God provided a way. And where she didn't think she was going to get the job, the rest is history. I mean, she met me. We have a wonderful life together. But what if she'd have clicked on, before she clicked on that application, would have went, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I can do that. I'm not going to click on that. I'm not going to try for that. And how many times do we in our own lives go, I don't think I can do that. You know, we hear God speak about doing something or going somewhere, and you're like, I have no expertise in that. I have no experience in that. why are you sending me over there? You know, and many times in my own life I felt that way, and when I've reached out and I've gone and I've done what I felt called to do, oh my gosh, it's an amazing experience. It's like, okay, God, I understand. But how often do I again, next time something comes up and I'm like, oh, well, okay. Only if you show me how to do it. And God doesn't always work that way. God doesn't give us the whole script before we start moving. He doesn't give us the end. You know, sometimes he doesn't even give us the middle or the beginning. He just says go. And then we just have to trust in him. So, you know, he tells Joshua that your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. And on the 7th day, you are to march around the town 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horns, have all the people shout out as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse and people can charge straight into the town. Now, can you imagine Joshua going back to the elders, to the tribes, and saying, hey, this is what God wants us to do? And they're like, you want us to do what? You want us to walk around the walls 7 times? Just walk around it? And then shout? You know how long it took them to build these walls, Joshua? It took them years. Years. How is years of hard work and years of building up walls and building up fences and barriers and putting all these protective things in place, how is that going to fall with just an act of obedience? We're going to learn, and we're going to understand that when we are obedient, even in the craziness, even in the crisis, when we can learn to be obedient, it's amazing how one moment of obedience can really tear down years of building separation, years of building these walls that divide us, that divide ourselves, that divide us within our own selves, you know, and how we cling so tightly to the gates. You know, it's amazing that the verse begins with the people of Jericho shut their gates because they were afraid of the Israelites. They were afraid. Now, why were they afraid of the Israelites? Had they heard what had happened before? Who knows? You know, did they see the vast expanse of the Israelite army or the Israelite nation? It doesn't say. But it says that they started off in fear. And the Israelites started off in, how are we going to do this? You know? But the two came together. Fear and doubt came together, and in one act of obedience, they were both defeated. And what's really cool about this story is, for me, is it didn't just say, hey, go take your warriors and walk around the walls. The whole nation of Israel walked around this wall. Can you imagine these guys standing on the top of the wall, as my pastor so vividly described this morning? Can you imagine these guys standing on this wall 50 to 60 feet above the ground, and they're looking down and they're going, what are these guys doing? I mean, day 1, after day 3, probably day 4, they just started ignoring them. They started to be like, you know, it's like a car alarm. You know, when they first came out with car alarms, everybody's like, oh man, what is that? What is that? But now somebody's car alarm goes off, it's like almost, you just walk by, it's like, somebody's car alarm's going off. You know, we don't know if there's danger there or if it's just somebody hit the wrong button or whatever. So I'm sure by the 6th day, the people in Jericho were laughing, mocking this group of people that keep walking around their wall going, don't you see how tall the wall is? Don't you see how thick it is? Don't you see our mighty warriors up there? But God didn't see the wall. God saw the opportunity. And God always sees the opportunity, even when we're staring at a wall that seems impenetrable. He always sees the opportunity to be able to bring that wall down. And he has the opportunity. He has the means to do that. We just have to be obedient. I mean, what if Israel had only walked around for 6 days and said, I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm not going to walk around anymore. Nothing's happening. They're mocking us. They're laughing at us. They're calling us names. They're pointing down at us. They're probably throwing stuff at us. You know, what if they had given up on the 6th day? You know, who knows? But I can guarantee you victory wouldn't have been as easy as it did as it came on the 7th day. You know, sometimes we our own actions make our victory harder to win. And we blame God and say, why didn't you make it easier for us? And God, like, I gave you instructions. All you had to do was march around and yell. I did all the work. All you had to do is march around and yell. But sometimes we wait on God, and God gives us what we need, but we just, you know, too busy staring at the wall instead of staring at what's beyond the wall. And so on the 7th day, they marched around, blew the horn, and with a loud shout, the walls came down. Now, I've seen several shows actually on Jericho, and these archaeologists at one time believed that they had actually found the ruins of Jericho, because they had found this city that had been encompassed by this mighty wall. Now, what was cool about this show is that they dug and they dug and they dug and they dug about 40 feet, and this wall was still there. So what they think happened, instead of the wall just crumbling, they let out with a mighty obedient shout, and God just put his hands on the walls and just pushed them into the ground. Now, could you imagine the people of Jericho, who'd been mocking these guys probably for 6 days, looking and going, where'd y'all come from? You know what I mean? And victory was won. I mean, it was just crazy. It's like when we give obedience to God and he pushes the walls down that are around us and in us, all those demons and all those things that are attacking and frustrating us, they're all like, whoa, where'd he come from? You know what I mean? And it's just, and then God does the battle. He didn't even have to do anything. He just had to pull the walls down. Another great story is when the Israelites get to the Red Sea. Here they are coming to the Red Sea, and all of a sudden they look back and they see Egypt's chariots coming at them. Because the Pharaoh had been like, you know what? I'm going to wipe them all out. If they're not going to be with me, I'm going to wipe them all out. If they're not going to be my servants, I'm going to wipe them all out. So here's the nation of Israel at the Red Sea. And if you've ever seen pictures of the Red Sea, this thing is massive. Massive. They're looking at this sea going, we're toast. There's no hope. Moses, you let us out here to die in the wilderness, complaining. We're going to get killed by the Egyptians. And for what? For a few days of freedom? Thanks, Moses. But Moses says, hold on a second. The God of Abraham will save us. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Until they started to see the first waves part. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be an Israelite. Just standing there watching the sea, this massive sea just part and dry land appearing. I mean, I just can't imagine what it would have been like. And so out of fear and anger staring at this wall, Jesus God just created a way. He just created a way. And he just kept going. And he kept going, and he kept blowing, and he kept pushing the waves until he got to the other side. And then the Israelites physically got to see hope conquer fear. You know, 1 minute before they were all fearful for their life, thinking they were going to die there on the banks of the Red Sea. No hope. And then all of a sudden, a minute later, there was hope. There was an escape. There was a way out. There was a way to continue where there seemed to be no way forward. God created that path. And so they crossed the Red Sea and they continued on. Can you imagine crossing the ocean? It'd be like the Atlantic parting, and we're walking through the Atlantic Ocean. You know, it's just amazing. It just fathoms my mind how God goes to such great length to make it as easy as possible for us to get our victory. But we've got to be obedient. We've got to be faithful. We've got to be hopeful. We've got to listen, and we've got to move, and we've got to just keep going, because when we stop and we get stuck staring at the wall, and we don't try to figure out a way, or that there's no hope, then we just stand there and we get stuck. We don't move. It's like we're staring at the Badlands going, how in the world am I ever going to get past that? And if you've never been to the Badlands, you got to make a trip out there, because it's just amazing. I mean, the Badlands, this thing is so rough that they have clipboards at certain parts that you have to sign your name when you get to the clipboard. So at night, when the park is closed, if there's a car left, they run the car, they know who it is, because you have to give them your license plate number and your name before you go. Then they go and start checking clipboards. And then they're like, okay, well, they've signed this clipboard, we can keep going. We can keep going. So when we're walking through the Badlands of our own life, and we're finding a way out, and we're finding those lost people, and we're finding those opportunities, start checking the clipboards. Start looking to see. You know, God gives us points in our life where he really, really calls us out. And he really calls us to just experience victory in him, because when we get victory in him and we understand that and we feel that, man, it's just, like I said, I just don't understand how the Israelites after the Red Sea, they weren't like, okay, we're good, we'll follow you, you know. But shortly thereafter, you know, they're hungry in the wilderness. They're crying out, oh, you brought us out here to starve us to death. And then God brings them manna and quail. And then they start, it's just like, it was like, Joshua's head must have constantly ached in his heart, because it's like, have you not seen what God has done? How quickly have you forgotten the Red Sea, the manna, the quail, you know, the victories over the Canaanites and the Amorites. I think I said that right. You know, and here we are at Jericho, and doubts. We'll win. We'll be okay. You know, and so just over the course of their lives, the Israel nation, the Israelites just saw victory after victory after victory. Isn't that how we want to be in our own lives? Don't we want to look back and see victory after victory after victory after victory, and don't even come to the point that we don't even remember the wall, but we remember the breakthrough. You know, and we realize that God is a God who wants to give us not only victory, but easy victory. He wants to do all the work. We feel like God tells us something to do, and then we have to figure it all out on our own, and we have to do it all on our own. And God doesn't work that way. God says, I have a plan for you. I knew you before you were born. I've had this plan for you. I've already set everything up. It's just go and enjoy the victories that I've set up for you. It's like going to a nice wedding, and then the reception. It's not like you have to go to the reception and make your own food or set your own table. Everything is prepared for you. You just go in and you get to enjoy the food, the music, the fun, the fellowship. It's all prepared for you. And I just love that description that Jesus just talks about, him being the bride and the church being the groom. It's like this wedding, and when you think of weddings, you think of just joy and happiness and this thing being not only prepared for the bride and the groom, but also prepared for those in attendance. And so just reach out and enjoy God's banquet of victory, his banquet room of victory. The table is set. The food is prepared. All we have to do is accept the invitation. And God will take care of the rest. And we love you here. Man, it's been just so great talking to you guys today. Can't wait till next week. We can do this again. And the week after, and the week after, and the week after. We're just going to keep hammering this concept of victory and hope, and just understanding that when we work together as a community, we can overcome anything that is thrown at us. We can come to any wall and say, "Be gone." We can come and get true victory in Christ through our community of obedience. Till next week, guys, we love you. Have a great week. Enjoy the nice weather. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And we'll see you again next Sunday.